Hello, guys, and welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Michelle Expert, and welcome to the best and the biggest sales and entrepreneurship platform in the whole wide world. Here, we dish out the Resonate podcast, which you love so much, and also a bit of business content that I get to share with you. Today, my team compiled some questions that you guys have been asking on my Instagram, and today I'm going to answer them. So, if you don't follow me on Instagram, go ahead and do so. The link is going to be down below. We posted a Q&A box, and we've been doing that for a couple of weeks now to gather some hot questions that you guys have that are going to help you grow your businesses and increase your revenue and sales. And today I'll be answering them. So my team is going to start. I hope that you enjoy this. So question number one is.
Struggling with setting up quotes for potential clients
Mm-hmm,
because
mm-hmm,
so the budget conversation with client is demotivating.
mm-hmm.
How do I avoid such feelings when it comes to money conversations?
Oh, how to avoid being uncomfortable having a money conversation with a client, especially after you've sent the quotation to them
And they ghost you.
and they ghost you. You follow up. You really follow up. I think a lot of people feel like following up makes them sound desperate, but they don't realize that following up actually makes them sound like they want to service the client. And maybe it's not the following up, it's the how you follow up. I always say to people, you don't follow up by saying, "Hi, I just called to check if you still want to buy." Yeah, then you sound desperate. But when you follow up, I would say something along the lines of, "Hi, I hope you well. I'd like to go through the quote with you again to see if you have any questions." So do you see, like, responding like that to a client will make them feel like, oh, actually, maybe she wants to hear what I thought of the quote, but you are saying something without actually saying what you're saying. But it's within the words that you use within your follow up. If you sound desperate, you're obviously going to feel desperate. But if you sound like you want to help the client, it becomes so much easier. For instance, if you're a wedding planner, you can call them and say, "Hi, I'd like to discuss the quote with you. The wedding day is actually nearing close, and I just want to make sure that you are completely sorted out and you are assisted in the best way possible. Is this a good time to talk?" They know you're following up. So find things to say that will help you connect with a client when you're doing the follow up versus saying, "Hi, I'm just following up on that quote. Do you still want to work with us or not?" Because then that way you sound like somebody who's just interested in the transaction and not in actually building something and a relationship with that customer. So, yeah, it's you have to follow up and you have to find a way to follow up that is much easier and very comfortable and helps you build that relationship with the clients. And I've already given you a couple of options.
Okay. What does the client's journey entail
Yeah.
in order to make it start? So this could be product benefit,
Mm-hmm.
product options, or
Mm-hmm.
pricing.
Okay, what does a client journey look like to eventually getting to the sale? I think it differs for every business, but maybe just to simplify it for you, you have to have a point of entry for the client and a point of exit for the client. So the point of entry, for instance, is potentially your social media platform, right? That point of entry has to make people feel a certain way and essentially have a call to action. After that, it's after they've entered into your funnel. What are you doing with them? Are they signing up to your email? Are they signing up to your free course? Are they signing up to a trial product? Or are they buying your first product? Right after that, they go into the second phase, which for some businesses would be the checkout. For some business would be trying out whatever freebie you gave them into them eventually buying something that you're going to offer. It differs, but maybe the big thing is like from the point of entry to the point of exit, you have to make sure that you're creating an experience for your customers that are going to make them want to stay. If your point of entry makes me have to hula hoop 10 times, turn around, dance, and spin, I might not enter because it takes too much and it's such a big effort. That's why for a lot of people, if let's say your point of entry is a big product that costs 10,000 or $1,000, what I would advise people to do is maybe have a freebie for people to come in. Maybe have a cheaper product or a 50 Rand thing or $100 or like a $10 thing for people to come into the funnel, because people first have to experience you without investing too much, and then essentially because they loved what you initially gave them, they can then experience a lot from you. So it's important that your point of entry is very watertight and makes people want to engage more. And then for every touch point you have in your journey, they get to experience you more, they get to trust you a little bit more, they get to know you more until they essentially exit or still stay in the funnel but buying higher and higher tickets from you. So yeah, that's how you build it. Is create an experience from the point of entry until exit. But what it looks like in the middle is very different for a lot of businesses. Just make sure that it's helping you connect with clients and it's making people stay with you and buy from you even more and more and more.
What about if a client stays on your low ticket offer
Mm-hmm.
and you are struggling to get those clients to go up? Because like they are in,
Yeah.
they are still on low ticket, but
Yeah.
they feel like they have more than enough, they don't need to go up.
So in cases like that, what would have been the problem is that they haven't seen the value to go up, number one, or they really can't afford to go up. So chances are you can't have, let's say you've got 100 people coming in and then 90 are still staying on the low ticket. And that means you haven't really done the work to show them the value of the high ticket. But if you've got a big number going to buy the other high tickets and you've got a little bit of people staying on the low ticket, that's fine. But in the sense where you have to convince people to move from low ticket to high ticket, it means you have to bump up the value of what the high ticket actually is. And what a lot of people do actually, which is a big mistake, is that they make this low ticket, they give too much value to this low ticket that the high ticket basically looks like a replica of what they've initially given for free anyway. So you want to be very careful, or rather, what's the word I'm looking for? You want to be very, it's not cautious. There's a word I'm looking for, but you want to be very strategic rather in how you're going to place the different tickets so that people are moving. Remember, you have to think of it as a journey. It's not like when you, let's say, have a freebie, the idea is how does this freebie lead to this? And a lot of people just have a freebie to get people into your funnel, but without a strategy on how you're going to take them from one place to the other. So if literally there's an actual funnel that you're taking people through, your freebie should entice me to what the high ticket is going to be about. And when that strategy is not in place and it's not aligning, that's why people will end on the low ticket or the freebie part, because they don't see the value, or they don't see how what you've given them now connects with what you're already building or what you essentially want them to eventually buy. So it has to be a journey thing. So strategy is going to be your best friend. My first preference would be ClickFunnels. ClickFunnels is amazing. It is obviously at a bit of a hefty price. If you're a small business, you might not be able to afford it depending on where in the world you are. But I know a lot of small businesses in the States will use ClickFunnels because it literally has automated stuff for you, especially as a beginner, and you don't need to outsource somebody to build a funnel for you. Amazing. And I think there's also System OI or System IO. There's something like that. But if you are looking for somebody to help you build funnels or for a bit of a guidance on where you'd be able to build funnels, Club She is the people you need to go to. We've had them on this podcast before. They literally have all of these funnel weekends and all these funnel awesome things. Go to them. They will teach you the different platforms. They will show you. They will even help you, give you a step-by-step guide on how to build an entire funnel. And this is really like all I say to a lot of people is that all of this information is available for us. You just have to be willing to invest your time in being able to watch this podcast episodes and being able to engage with some of the guests and the people that we have on here, or the guests and the people that you see on other podcasts, so you can see what they have to offer and then jump on that to get a bit of help. So ClickFunnels is definitely my favorite. However, from like a low budget perspective, I know System OI, if I'm correct with that name, they are at a fraction of the price. They offer something similar as well to ClickFunnels, a little bit more less complicated as well if you're a beginner. So yeah, but go to Club She Is and they'll show you, they'll guide you, they'll teach you, they'll help you with all of this stuff.
We've already spoken about the art of storytelling.
Yes.
So let's talk about the art of copywriting,
Yeah.
because we love your
Yeah.
email that comes up.
Yeah.
How do a small business owner like tell the story in writing, not just
Mm.
a video content? Or what are
Okay.
the tricks that you've used that have worked for
In
you?
writing. Okay, cool. So how do you tell a story in writing, which is the art of copywriting, from a captions and to mailers? I think for me the important thing every time I'm writing a mailer out to my audience or I write a caption is, what emotion do I want them to feel with this piece of writing? Every single thing that you say and every single thing that we write carries a specific emotion. And it's important to realize that there are certain words that you will use that carry a specific emotion. And if you want to tap into people's, let's say, psychology, for lack of a better word, you have to be mindful about the words that you're using when you speak to them. So for instance, in sales, we say things like, you don't want to use a word, you don't want to say something is expensive to your customer. You want to say it's premium, because that premium makes it feel more a luxury. It gives a certain perception and it gives a certain feeling than if you just said it's expensive, because then you've just named it to the price. So it's using certain words, but you learn this by reading a lot. People that write a lot of books know how to use the art of language to make you feel a certain way. They know how to use certain words instead of other words to make you feel a certain way. So I'd say read a lot, listen to people, like listen to the people that you listen to. Ne? If you've got a favorite YouTuber or a favorite podcast, listen to how they speak to you and ask yourself, how do they make you feel? If they make you feel empowered or they make you feel motivated, you must realize that there's something about the way that they speak and the words that they use that makes you feel that certain way. Instead of saying you are going to fail, they will say things like we are going to succeed, or we are, and they make it feel like it's inclusive. We are all together in this. So it's really in the emotion. What do you want people to get from this, and then choose certain words. I'd even go as far as go to Google and say, what is the best word to use instead of expensive, or instead of this sentence? There's ChatGPT now that will help you do that. So you can even type out what you're trying to say, and then you tell ChatGPT to say, please rewrite this for me in a way that helps people feel, or makes people feel empathetic, excited, passionate, da, 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 and it will rewrite it for you in a way that's nice. I don't recommend people taking whatever ChatGPT has given you and then putting it there. I'd say edit it a little bit, give it a voice so it doesn't sound AI, tweak it a little bit, put your own little lingo in it, but make it personal. But it always has to make people feel a certain way. To that point, I always say to people, the issue of copywriting is so powerful, because even when we do, let's say, a b-roll, and then we put like what's that thing where they put words, where you speak over a b-roll, what is that? No, let's like you speak the transcribing or transcripting. Yeah, where you like transcripting a b-roll, and you are speaking to it. I always say to people, it's important to realize that you don't put content out and say, oh my God, I'm living such an amazing life. God has been so good to me. I am so blessed and I love my life. Thank you guys. Bye. What do you want people to feel from that? You know what I mean? It's like, okay, your life is great. What's next? But if you maybe showed us your life being great, and then you spoke about something you've learned that has helped you live this life, or a point of encouragement or a word of encouragement, now you are driving a certain emotion. So it's not only with writing, but it's also in the way that we speak and when we film stories. I think sometimes a lot of creators and people within the creative industry are caught up into just like telling and showing people how awesome they are. But it's like, yeah, people will be motivated by that until a point where they actually get annoyed, because you're not being consistent with your message. You are just telling everybody how great and how awesome your life is, or how awesome. And it's only a matter of time for people to start hating, because it feels like humble bragging. You are not helping me in any way. You're just literally pumping down how great your life is. And no hate to you, but if you're trying to monetize and build a business from that platform, I think it's important that you are very careful with how you're making people feel, and the message that you are attaching to this abundance and this awesome life that you're living. I think you've got a better chance to connect with people when you are giving, not when you're just saying, oh my God, look at me.
How does one build a community or a tribe that is relatable but at some point profitable?
Building community that is relatable and eventually profitable. I think relatability is subjective, right? To like the different seasons that you are in. For instance, some people will start a page as a struggling makeup artist and get so many people following them. And then when they're no longer a struggling makeup artist, people don't want to follow them anymore because they can't relate with like now them being this rich person. I think relatability is more sentimental than it is situational, actually. It's more like, what do we relate with? Yes, we essentially could relate to the struggle, but potentially we relate to the mentality of the go getter. We relate to the mentality of people, of a person who is fighting for their life, of somebody who's trying to work harder, of somebody who's trying to prove that they can do it. And even after they've arrived, they're still trying to work a little bit more. And I think as somebody who's building a community or who's built a community, you need to realize what are the sentiments that keeps your audience, or that helps you also get a new audience. It's not your rags to riches story. It could be part of it, but maybe the reason why that rags to riches story is so important to people relate with it, is because people see themselves in it. So even when you've made it, you still need to still have a canvas that allows people to still see themselves through you, so that you're not completely out of reach. Of course, people are going to fall away when you do like make it, and they might feel like, oh, now she lives in such an awesome big house and we can't relate with her anymore. And that's still fine. You'll get a new audience, but I think you still have a certain responsibility to still keep the sentiment, or not to keep, but to maybe improve and outline that sentiment of why this community matters to a lot of people, so that you're no longer like arrogant. Like, you started creating broke people content, but now that you're not broke, you like laughing at broke people. You know what I mean? It's like, be consistent. Like, what kind of a creator are you actually? So I think that you need to be consistent with your messaging. And I get that this is hard, to be honest, for different things. It's easier to be consistent with your messaging when you're doing business content, because business will always be business. But I think it's a lot harder if you're doing skits, for instance, or it's a lot harder if you're doing lifestyle content, because as your lifestyle also increases, it becomes a little bit more posh and more zhush. So in that department, I really wouldn't know. I would say that for somebody who's doing more, let's say, business or personal development or Christian or whatever the case is, still keep the same sentiment sentiments even at whatever level you are in. You can still be sharing business knowledge as you're a startup business, and even as you grow and build a multi-million dollar businesses, you can still share the sentiment of business still at whatever scale and whatever level you are. Maybe the advantage in our industry is that you'll now have more insight to share because you've got the lived experience. But yeah, it's an interesting one, but still keep the same sentiments that you had and that you still want people to get from you as you are moving forward.
When is it the right time to delegate or add an additional team member or employee?
Oh, good Lord. Yeah. I've addressed this before in another podcast episode. Ne? I remember that very well. When is a good time to delegate or add another employee? Norma explained this to us so well. So we did an episode with an HR expert on the podcast, and unfortunately we lost all the sound, so we actually couldn't post it. And she literally addressed this whole thing so beautifully with us. And I've addressed it, but I think what she said was like more consolidated and more useful. And she said on the podcast that the only time you need to be adding a new person into the business is when it's not when you want to duplicate yourself, because sometimes we think that, oh, I can't do these things anymore, I need somebody else to do it. She was like, no, then that's a mistake, because nobody's going to be like you. But you can only do that when you understand the ins and the outs of your business and you're very clear around what you want the other person to actually do. So that person should not replicate what you are already doing or should not take over from you, but they should do other tasks that are going to help you grow. Because if that person takes over from what you're already doing, essentially you guys are all going to be self-employed and you're going to be very frustrated with them, because now they have to wait on you to like give them the tasks and everything else. But I think it's very important that you begin to create systems and processes for your business. My mentor always says to me, if you're going to start a new business, always make sure that you're operating it as a JSE listed business. Means that there's systems, there's processes, and you're already creating a company culture. Even if it's just you, you're already creating some form of like a way of working in the business, even if it's only you. That when somebody else comes, they're coming into a blueprint that already exists, that they're already falling into, and that way it becomes much easier for them to run with the business without you having to micromanage them and to always tell them what to do, because the systems and the processes are there and you're already building the departments before they're filled in. So you already know that if I'm bringing somebody and she's an assistant, these are the things she needs to do. If I'm bringing somebody and I wanted to focus on marketing, these are the things that she wants to do. And that way you've got a greater chance of building a business. But yeah, it shouldn't be when you want them to duplicate what you're doing, because the business doesn't need two Michelles. It needs a Mish and a Stephanie. It needs a Mish and a Stephanie and a Swaggy. You know what I mean? It doesn't need a Michelle alone. So yeah, that's when you should know whether to hire or not. And also if the money is also, doing okay. Some people really want to hire, but it's like where you're not making enough money to hire. You're just gonna throw people in and then underpay them. That's not fair.
What are the best platforms to use for content creation and systems that help run a digital marketing agency efficiently?
Whew. So I don't know much about running a digital marketing agency, but I'll tell you what has worked for Resonate is that the platforms, I mean, before we used to have platforms like Later where you'd have to schedule content, etc. And I think a lot of social media platforms have kind of done away with those things, and now you can actually schedule content on the actual platforms. So I would say it's obviously creating the content in advance so that you already have it there weeks ahead. It's also something that we're doing for the podcast as well, making sure that we've got enough episodes like for 3 weeks also, so that we can be relaxed and we can schedule them. We've got enough time to edit and change and whatever. So that's the first one. And I think the second one would be schedule them using the platforms. TikTok from the desktop allows you to schedule, not on your phone. It's a desktop version that allows you to schedule content. Instagram on your phone also allows you to schedule content. Facebook also allows you to schedule content on there. But you have to already kind of have prepped that. And then you can do the captions in advance, well thought through, driving a certain emotion, and then run those. And then what I think you then need is like a community manager, if you're not the one that's there to manage the community, which is responding to comments all the time, engaging on the comments, posting on the stories on all the platforms, or maybe interlinking the stories on the Meta platforms and then on TikTok, being able to run with that. But I think a lot of businesses now, or small businesses, just need a community manager. If you can plan your content properly, you just need somebody, or you need to just allocate time on a daily basis to manage your community, respond to comments, and interact. But that's like the simplest way you can do it as a small business owner, as you're moving to growing and eventually hiring a digital marketing agency that will be able to run those things, because they have all the systems in place that can help you do all of that.
What is the difference between a social media manager
Mm-hmm.
and community I
Mm-hmm.
believe so,
Yeah.
and social and a content creator, because
Mm.
they are like in the
Yeah, that
mix,
is.
and but they all have different roles at the end of
Yeah.
the day.
So I would say, and I think Kay Radebe answered that question at the episode that we
Yes.
did. So if somebody's looking for like in-depth information, go to that episode. But I would say content creator is somebody that is basically, this is the creative of the business. This is somebody who's coming up with the creative ideas on how are we going to bring this product in the eyes of people with the content. So if we are trying to create content with this bottle of water, are we going to drink it? Are we going to shake it so we can show the bubbles in there? What are we going to do so that that's the content creator? And then I think the social media manager is the person that then looks at the stats and says, when is the right time to post? Which platform should we post which kind of content? And does that advising and the scheduling. And then the community manager then becomes, after the content has been put out there and it's on the platform, the community manager now says, okay, I'm going to respond to comments. And essentially, to an extent, then starts creating the, pulling up the data around this is what people are saying, this is what people are enjoying from this content, etc. So I think they work really hand in hand, but serve quite, different platforms. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so there's a food business
Yeah.
trying to sell the experience, not
Mm-hmm.
just the product.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of content should we post?
Food business trying to sell the experience and not just the product. So for anybody that's trying to showcase the experience of any product, you have to ask yourself, what is the feeling associated with your with whatever you're selling, right? So if you're selling food, what's the feeling associated with food? It's like delicious, it's yummy, it's good for your body, it makes you feel good and all of those things. Then every content piece you need to put out needs to tell us that. So you probably want to give us content of somebody taking a bite and us seeing their facial expression so we can see how they truly feel about the food, because that is the emotion. Because when you give emotion, you've given experience, right? That's why a lot of things attached to emotions exude or give you the experience that you need. So if it's food, it's like, what is the experience? Food is a very social thing. Maybe show us a family sitting and having dinner and enjoying themselves. Maybe show us somebody working, and while they're working, they take a bite of this meal that's next to them and just taking a moment to appreciate it because they're having this delicious meal. But give us scenarios. Oh, I say this a lot to people who want to deal with experiences within their products and services. It's like, give us the scenario that would be perfect for what you offer. So, whatever services or products you offer, your content needs to build up scenarios, right? It's like, how in the ads you'll see them put milk with like kids running and calcium for their bones or whatever. They are painting the picture of the experience that we are bound to have when we experience this product. You need to give us that for your product as well. So it's like, you're not going to take a picture and say, oh, here's my milk or here's my honey. It looks great and you'll enjoy it. No, show us putting it in the tea and how it melts easily in the tea. And then how, when somebody sips that tea, they enjoy it so much. And the helper sips on the tea, the mom sips on the tea, the uncle, the granddad, different people in different situations enjoying this tea. You will never run out of content ideas.
So, what is your take
Okay.
on spending money in order to make money,
Ah,
such as investing in clothes
yes.
for content creation
Yeah.
in order to attract the brand?
Whew, that's an interesting conversation. And I'll say that I'm two ways about it, right? I believe that there is a great balance between spending money to make money, but people normally use that as an excuse to overspend. Yeah. So, for instance, when I started this YouTube channel, if you go back to all my videos, I used to film with an Huawei phone. That's how I started the channel, until I got to a point where I could afford a camera. And I didn't buy a camera like, oh my God, I need to get a camera immediately. I had to get to a point where I could comfortably afford a camera and then buy a camera to, create more. And maybe like getting new clothes to create more content. I think if you're a fashion a person, that's more directed. But if you're somebody who's doing sit down videos, and we don't need to see in 10 different outfits, there's no need for all of that. You can play around with what you have in your wardrobe. You can basically like wear something else and then put a blazer for the second video. You know what I mean? You can improvise. But you also have to ask yourself, why do people come to your page? If like, I know for sure that I know a lot of my audience cares a lot about how I look to an extent, but they're not here for how I look. They're not here for how I dress. I love looking good, dressing well, and being presentable. But I'm not going to obsess over buying new clothes. I'm okay to repeat a jersey here and there. Like, I'm fine with that because I know that my audience doesn't come here for my fashion sense, right? They come here to get nuggets on sales and entrepreneurship and to learn stuff. So chances are they might not even recognize what I'm wearing today or what I wore last week, or some will, but even if they do, it won't be something that matters to them. And if one or two people come on the platform and pick that up and they don't like my fashion sense or they don't like what I'm dressing, that's also fine. But at the end of the day, they got what they came here for. So you need to ask yourself, what do your customers or what do your people come there for? If you're a fashion consultant and you're doing fashion content, maybe you can get away with that explanation. But if you're somebody who does sit down videos or who does another kind of content and you don't need to be spending money on clothes and makeup and all those other hectic things, I would say don't. Focus more on giving your customers what they come here for. So for me, right, it's important that I upskill myself. It's important that I expose myself to the right seminars, to the right books, to the right courses, so that I'm able to give my audience the relevant information, the great nuggets that are going to help them, and I'm able to try these things. I would rather invest in that than in a new outfit, because I know they're not here for the fashion. Because then if I invest in all the fashion, but I'm not investing in my mind and my brain and in my skill, essentially they're going to start coming here to see good outfits, but zero nuggets, zero brain things, and that's not what they're here for. So ask yourself, what are your customers there for?
How does one decide who is my target audience between the brands to work with or individual sales? And also, how do I charge for these two separate audiences?
We did a market research masterclass about a couple of months ago in the year, which was very helpful for something like this. So the question is, how do they know who their target audience is between the brands that they're already working with and also the people that are actually following them? I think there's two things, and every business sometimes does go through this conundrum. And the first one is like the people that is actually buying from you versus what your ideal customer is. And sometimes you get that there are people that are buying, but maybe those people aren't your ideal customer, or that's not the ideal customer you had in mind at the time. So you need to make sure that you marry the two. Or there is, let's say, the people that are buying from them and the ideal customer are the same thing. I think what you need to ask yourself, which is something I talk about a lot, is build an archetype of who is the relevant customer for you, right? So the relevant customer for you need to play them out. So if you say, for instance, Sarah, the archetype is my customer. I did a video on this, so look at some of my solo videos. I did this on how to actually build an archetype for your business. Is once you have to build an archetype, number one, that suits the kind of customer that you want. And I always say you have to build three different archetypes. So you might have Sarah, John, and Tabo, right? And they all have to suit three different potential scenarios your customers might be in. So for instance, for Resonate, if we have Sarah, John, and Tabo, Sarah might be a receptionist who has a small side hustle that she wants to scale. John might be like a small business owner who's trying to grow her business, grow his business, and be successful. And then we said Sarah, John, and Tabo, and then Tabo might already be an entrepreneur who's been doing really well but is ready to pivot and wants to change things around in their business. So these are three different archetypes that still speak to what our business does. So for your business as well, you need to have at least three different archetypes that still speak to that business, because then you know that today on Monday I'm putting a content piece, and this content piece is going to be straight to Sarah, is going to sell to Sarah. And then on Tuesday, the content piece might sell to John. And then on Wednesday, the content piece might sell to Tabo. But if you don't have an archetype or the person that you essentially want to buy from your business, you're going to be casting out so much content and so much marketing and hope anyone catches. And when anyone catches, you might not like that. So you first have to kind of know who you want to speak to, which is building the archetype, and then speak in a way that is going to speak to them. For instance, if let's say Sarah, who's the receptionist, is watching my content, she might relate to a video that I might post to attract a Tabo, right? But I know that a Tabo is going to resonate with this content piece so much based on where they are. And then maybe we might do a masterclass for business startups, for how to run a side hustle. I know Tabo might not come to that masterclass because Tabo is already established. He's really thinking about scaling, but I know that's for Sarah, and Sarah's going to come. So therefore, if I'm marketing that, my price point is speaking to Sarah, right? Because I know where Sarah is. I already have an idea of where does she live, potentially, what is her earnings, what can she afford in terms of upskilling herself, because that's how you build an archetype. And then same thing with John as well, then same thing with Tabo. So you see, when we spoke about journeys earlier, you will see that because this is also part of the funnel. So ideally, I want Sarah to then be a Tabo and then be a John. Do you get what I'm saying? And then from being a John to take continuous coaching from the business. But I'm trying to grow Sarah to essentially become a John. So I'm taking Sarah through the journey. So then the business will then have different entry points where Sarah might only be able to do my master classes at the moment and won't be able to afford our coaching because of where she is and what she's trying to learn. But we then have to grow her to become a Tabo where she then transitions from a full-time job into now running her own business and then runs it so well and then now wants to scale. So you have to be so intentional in any business around where do you want to find your customer? Where are they mentally, physically and financially, and then where do you want to take them? And then you create your offerings within that as a journey where you're going to take them. And that way you will actually have the right customers that want to buy from you come in because you're intentional about the people you want to speak to. And I think a lot of businesses currently, or small business owners, are they just post content, they just put out all of these things without that intentionality. And then essentially what happens is every Tom, Dick, and Harry comes and buys from them, and then they don't like it, or they're not. It's like now they're struggling to consolidate all of their efforts and to really define their customer because they've got too many different people buying. But I think it's because they were not intentional from the very first place around who they actually wanted to be part of their business. So, and I mean, I always say to people, in as much as you want customers to come in and you want the business, you must understand that this is your business and you are building this baby, and not every customer is your customer. You don't want to have every customer because some customers are not worth it. They're going to give you a headache. You're not going to enjoy working with them. So you have then the liberty to build an archetype of the kind of person you want to work with, the kind of person you want to transact with that are going to respect your work, see value in it. And then you want your communication. You want to be able to speak to them in a way that only speaks to them specifically and enables them to transact and spend money in your business. Did I answer that well for you? Okay, cool. That brings our Q&A session to the end. I actually really enjoyed that, and I think we need to do that very often. It was so good. But yeah, we do put some question boxes on my Instagram, not often anymore because there's always so much that is happening. But I think we will try do this on a monthly basis so that we can answer a little bit more of your questions. And I also want to encourage you, be more specific with your questions, especially if you have a specific business and you've got a scenario, put it in there so that we are able to actually address it for you here. Because I know there are a lot of people who really would love to pick our brain on some of these things, but maybe aren't in a position where they can get a consult with us anymore, or none of the consults are available because that's basically what has been happening over the past couple of weeks where we've been very much fully booked. So yeah, thank you so much for tuning in. I hope that you guys enjoyed it. Maybe, just maybe, put your questions down below, and when we do another Q&A, we actually start here, and then we can answer the questions that you guys have put down below, and we'll see you guys on our next video. Goodbye.